Right?
I mean, and think about that too. If you were to pitch, that's the thing about movies too. If you were to pitch the story, oh, we're gonna make a, drama, comedy, interesting story about the financial crisis of 2008, you'd be like, what? That sounds boring.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deficit Podcast. My name's Adam Aubrey, and here today our goal is to stimulate your deficit with good chats, life hacks, and great conversations. Hopefully a little bit of everything in between as well. I'm joined today with a post-production supervisor in the film industry up here in Vancouver named Ryan Clarke. Hello, Ryan.
Adam, how's it going?
Not good, man. Pretty good. I'm pretty excited to have you on. I think you're my first who is somewhat senior ranking in the film industry as far as it goes. And, as you know, from our prior conversations, I got into it a few years back. And it was really cool to find out that I actually had someone through the family that's been working out here for, how long did you say you've been in the industry for?
It's over 25 years, I think. So, yeah, it's been a while.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
So do you mind if I jump into that right away here? Can
Sure.
Okay, so I was wondering, first off, when you were younger, coming up, was there ever a point in high school or something where you were like, I want to be involved in editing and the whole post side of film, or was there something else that you were going for?
So the answer is no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess when I was, like everybody when you're in high school, just trying to get through it, have fun, what have you. I did have intentions to go to university or college, and hadn't really figured out exactly what I want to do. Like, I want to be a lawyer when I get out, or I want to be, what have you. But I thought, okay, going into university was a good idea. Actually went to UCC in Kamloops with a transfer program down to either SFU or UBC.
Cool.
And so I started out in business. And pretty quickly into it, I was like, I don't really like this. It seemed a bit dry to me. Same with all my friends. And then I did transfer down to Vancouver at SFU and sort of switched over to communications was my major. But during that time, there was a film production that came through Kamloops, and I was back home working summers to save money to go to university. And the production came through town, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly what captured my interest. I think when I was in Vancouver, going to school, you would see productions around. If memory serves, I may have been an extra on a set at one point, and kind of found it interesting, right? I was like, hey, this seems kind of fun and cool and what have you. So then I went back to Kamloops, was working construction to save money, and there was a production that came through town, and I was like, hey, this might be kind of cool, and went down to set, checked it out a bit, and I started talking to people about potentially working on set. And at that time I remember who exactly I spoke with, but they were like, oh yeah, we don't really need anybody right now, but if you want to hang out, feel free. And I was like, sure. So I was kind of hanging around set, and then eventually somebody came up to me and was like, what are you doing right now? I was like, nothing. They're like, okay, we've got some things for you to do.
Cool.
And that was it. That was sort of how it all started. That was the beginning.
So they wrangled you in for some production assistant work or something? Or?
Yeah, it kind of started out as can you go to this other location and watch some of this stuff, the boring PA stuff they always get you to do, sit in an empty parking lot. And then when I came back to set, all of a sudden I was an extra set of hands and that they needed. And so I was working, with the lighting and electrics department, and then the grip department wanted me, and locations wanted me. So every day I was doing something different. One day I'd be driving a car. Then at one point I was doing dailies runs because we shot on film. So I would run footage from Kamloops to Vancouver, pick it up in the morning, go back.
So they had you on as a Swiss Army knife, essentially.
Yeah, it was super exciting, and it was really fun. And I would be setting lights on set, working with the DP. This was all on my third day.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so it was a really great opportunity and great exposure to the business, and yeah, at the time, like super exciting too. It was a lot of fun.
How old are you when you said you did that?
God, I don't know. I have to do the math, but would have been in my early 20s for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wicked. So prior to going to university and like high school and stuff, what kind of passions did you have like before the reality of life set in? You're like, well, I'm going to have to go to university and get this kind of a degree. Was there like a certain artistic passion that you had or anything like that?
Not so much. I mean, growing up in Kamloops is
pretty
you
blue
did, you
collar
know
town.
what it's like, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's so much to do. You know, I was like playing soccer, and I was very active. Like my parents were active, so
Cool.
was I. So, you know, skiing and soccer and, you know, mountain biking and fishing and all that stuff. So, no, I was just like enjoying the outdoors, enjoying my life that way. But yeah, I never really had a direction to kind of. I loved watching movies.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like I was always watching movies and TV shows, like, you know, Cheers and dating myself and that sort of thing. But I love, and movies I loved, right? I remember watching, you know, whether it was Die Hard or you know.
Die Hard, like honestly, still in my books, top 3 greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, fantastic. And but everything, like drama and action and horror, all that stuff when I was a kid. And so I loved movies, but I didn't really think of like, oh, I want to go direct movies or, you know, be in movies or anything like that.
It always seems so far away too, right? Like when you see the movies, and not a lot of people are really aware that there's this film industry down here to work in, right? At first, it seems like it's strictly a Hollywood or New York thing.
Yeah, very much so. I think that perspective may have changed now over the years because there's so much happening in Vancouver and even in the interior. Like, you know, like Kelowna is a huge, you know, shooting location now.
Yeah, I know when I first came down here to work, nobody that I knew had any clue that they knew that they did movies in Vancouver, but they had no idea that the industry was as big as it was.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay.
Growing up in Kamloops, it was like, at least when I was growing up there, when you wanted to make good money, everyone was like, you get a trade, go up north to the camps, work in the sands or whatever, right? Sure. Nobody ever mentions the $7 billion a year industry that functions down here.
Right.
And when I got down here, it was like really eye-opening. I had no idea how, like, I knew it was big, but I had no idea how big it was. Yeah. Like, it really is, like, it kind of takes you back a little bit, makes you think, like, holy crap, like, how have I been, like, this is only 3 hours away from my hometown. How have I not known about this the whole time? It's a little wild. So, like, when it comes to the transition from, like, you first getting into film into getting into the post-production side of things, how did that all work its way through? Like, if you had someone here who was looking to get into that, like a PA or something like that, and they're wondering, let's start with like how you did it, and then through your experience, what you would tell someone who's interested in getting into that side of work.
Sure. I think everybody has a different story about how they got where they are in film. I was, again, very fortunate with the production that I hooked up with back in Kamloops, that first production. It was run by 2 brothers named the Vince brothers, William and Robert. And they really, there's been no one quite like them that's really given opportunities in the industry. I haven't seen it quite the way that they did. So the one producer in particular, Bill, he, you know, I started working out on these sets. He saw that I worked hard and you know, seemingly liked me and was like, let's keep this kid busy. And eventually he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, you know, at this point, I thought, well, I might want to get into directing and that kind of thing. And he suggested, he's like, we should get you into post-production because that will give you an idea about how it all kind of comes together. It gives you a different perspective. And he goes, a lot of, you know, directors, they were editors and have gone on to directing. So he thought it'd be very valuable for me. And I think he needed people to be on a team in post. So that was the beginning. I started on a movie and then he's like, we'll move you into post-production. And at that point it was awesome. Like, it was just, you'd learn so much every day. And it was essentially myself and I think 3 other guys my age, maybe 4, that were kind of running this post-production division for this company. Cool. Yeah, it was really great. He gave us an opportunity, and you know, we worked our asses off for him and for the productions, but we were also like gaining all this experience. It was fantastic. And we were getting paid as well. Like it wasn't making nothing. So that was a real, I mean, that individual, Bill Vince, was such a huge impact in my life.
Cool.
He's since passed. He, unfortunately, at about, I think he was 44, he died of cancer. Yeah, but he was definitely responsible for giving me a big break and my transfer from production to post.
So when you went into post, did they have, what was the first kind of jobs they had you doing?
Oh, the fun stuff. But again, it sounds like so long ago, but it was like, dubbing, we called it, making copies on VHS of the dailies or what have you.
Cool.
And, sometimes like delivering it to set. A lot of sort of the technical end in the facility. Again, doing even basic onlines, which it's so different now than it was then. But it was like, these big 3/4 tape and decks and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it was very technical, but it was very cool. I really liked it. Yeah.
Nice. Did you, when it came to like the actual editing part of it, what aspect of that was more fascinating to you, like the visual or the audio or the VFX?
Well, when I first started, it was amazing. Like you'd see, the footage. I'm sure you probably know about the old ways that they used to cut film, and we still kind of did at the very end of the process, but cutting actual film negative, right?
Wow.
And but the editors, when I started, they were all working on these digital editing systems. The first one was called the D-Vision, and Avid, was also started at the same time. And
cool.
That was the coolest thing. I remember seeing like a giant monitor with all the frames, right, of every take, like up there with the slates and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the editor would scroll through and be able to cut it instantly digitally. And that was really impressive to me. I was like, this is amazing to be able to do this, the technology and the creativity. So that was pretty wild. And then the whole process that follows with it, like the sound edit and, the Foley recording and the mixes and then the picture side. It was just, the whole process is quite, I don't want to say magical, but it's really cool.
Well, that's why they call it movie magic, right?
I know.
It makes sense. They're making the magic in there.
So they say.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Foleying has always been interesting to me. I watched a little documentary a while ago about how they got the sound effects for the first Star Wars trilogy. Man, I had no idea. Like the lasers, it's just a guy tapping a guide wire with a wrench. Yeah. That's just crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. I also remember the first time I was in Universal Studios and we did a tour, and they took us to like a post room. I think it was like a Foley pit and stuff, and they were laying over sound effects for Miami Vice, and I remember watching it, and I was like, they can't do this for the whole movie, right? Like, that would take forever.
Yeah,
creating a sound for everything, and as I got into the industry, it's like, yeah, they do. And it's not all done by hand, but it's every single sound is added or enhanced or replaced. And I was just like, I can't believe it. It must take forever.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, and the amount of attention to detail in the background you must have to like stay aware of is just like, it's a little mind blowing. I don't know if I could ever focus that much on like just seeing because I mean, if you miss one car driving by or something, then it's like there's a lapse in the audio, right? It's kind of tricky there. So you've been in the post world for how long now since you got into film?
Oh God, I'm trying to remember what the first movie I worked in post was. I mean, it's been roughly like 20 years probably in post, and at least, probably another 5 or so on set, I think, something like that.
What was the last time you can remember being like just really stoked on a project? And you don't have to mention the name of the project necessarily, but if there is something like, if there's like a stunt or something, that you can disclose, that'd be cool to hear about.
I mean, again, when you're on set for the first time, it's all pretty exciting, right?
Yeah.
You get to see, like, the company I worked for, they did kind of low budget action movies. So there was always like a car rollover or an explosion. And I mean, I got bring back lots of memories, but they did a huge explosion of the old Palisades Hotel before they imploded it, for a movie I worked on. It was like about, bomb diffusers.
Cool.
But they literally set off this huge explosion of this abandoned hotel. And I just it was like I was there on set, and my jacket was steaming after because of like rain and the heat and everything. And
Holy shit.
yeah, it was really cool. So that was pretty exciting. But as far as the projects go, it's really, in my career anyway, it's been, a real mixed bag, right?
Yeah.
Some projects you're like, whatever, it's just a job and that kind of thing. And then some projects are like really cool.
You kind of get on board with the passion of it all.
Yeah. And again, everyone has different interests, whether it's some people are really into documentaries, some people are into reality, some like the high budget stuff. But there's definitely some projects where I'm like, this is really cool. Like, this is something that I would watch and that I'm, excited to be a part of. But, at the end of the day, it's just a job. And as the years have gone on for me, it's really been about the people you work with. Mm-hmm. And I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of really great people,
Cool.
made some good friends that are like, some are lifelong friends.
Nice.
And, so that's a huge thing for me these days.
That's the big factor for you is the people?
It is now, yeah. I think, in the beginning, again, it's just all kind of you're excited about it and that sort of thing. But as time's gone on, it's like you're spending, many hours, especially if you're on set, as you know, right? Yeah. You want to enjoy the company of the people you're with. So.
Yeah, you're with them 15 hours a day, so you don't want to have people that bother you the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So with the people being a major part of like the satisfaction of your job, like being happy at it. Mm-hmm. What are kind of the do's and don'ts? Like, say there's a new guy in the office or whatever. What's something that you would tell that PA like to watch out for and be on top of versus don't ever do this sort of thing? Like, like kind of like if you're working on set, don't talk when we're rolling.
Yeah.
But like, do make sure to stay on top of like the trash or whatever, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one piece that piece of advice I'd have is, I've always erred on the side of not saying anything about, the creativity or opinions about the show or anything like that. It's kind of like keep it to yourself a lot of times.
Okay.
Now I'm not saying if somebody asks you, don't be dishonest, but I just think about it from other people's perspective. If this is their passion project and they've worked on it for 2 years or 3 years and they're doing it and, you sit there and you think, well, this is kind of it's not very good. Right. You kind of keep that to yourself. Yeah. Even though it's true. Yeah. Because again, for other people, it is a passion, and they might see it differently.
How often does that happen? Like, do you come across a lot of projects where you kind of look at it and you're like, let's just get this done and put this garbage out or whatever? Or what?
I don't know how often. I mean, again, it's a job, and I think even actors will say the same thing. It's like they'll work on projects that kind of stink, right? But they kind of keep it to themselves. I think like Shia LaBeouf is a big one that comes to mind when he kind of spoke out about the fourth Indiana Jones movie or whatever it was, and he was like, "This isn't very good," and everyone's like, "You can't say that." Like, you're promoting this movie and you're the star, and you can't say that.
You're gonna piss George off. Don't
piss everybody off. Yeah. And Spielberg and these huge like icons in the industry, and I think everyone was kind of like, I mean, good for him for kind of speaking his mind, but at what cost, right? Like all of a sudden Hollywood's like, well, okay, we're gonna put you on the sidelines. But again, a super talented guy, but so I find that I kind of I just keep quiet about it, even though I might feel a certain way and stuff. And but at the same time, if it is something that I do really like, I will say like, hey, this is really great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So out of the three sort of like the way I'm picturing it in post-production is like three elements of visual, audio, and then the effects. So which one of those three is your favorite to be kind of around when it comes to that side of the process?
I would say, I mean, it's my job as a post-production supervisor because it's all of those, and sort of all the minutia in between. I wouldn't say that there's, a part of it that I love more than the other. For me, it's kind of as a whole. But it is interesting, like when you kind of get close to the end, like, you know, whether it's a mix or, you know, a color session or dropping in the final visual effects. That's kind of cool because you kind of get to see the finished product, right?
Cool.
So yeah, it's not really one or the other for me.
Oh, nice. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. It does kind of make a lot more sense to appreciate something as like an entire finished product than just one element of it. So when you're going, like you're close to the end of a project, what exactly is that like? Like, you know, people are starting to get all the jobs done and stuff. I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, how do you go about making sure that everything is done to the needs of the person owning the project, I guess? Like, do you have like boxes that you tick off, or do you have that person involved intimately in the process the whole time to tell you when it's good to go?
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, the executives, you know, or the producers of a project, like you say, it's their project. And so, you know, they usually have final sign off on everything. Like, all right, here are all the completed visual effects. We think they're great. You know, what's your, you know, feedback or feeling? And they, you know, they give notes on everything, right? Whether it's visual effects or the edit or the sound mix, like all the way along, they give their opinions. And so, like you say, because they're the client, you always, you know, accommodate and make those adjustments to make sure that they're happy.
Cool. So I know that you have kind of fallen into the world of post-production supervisor, right? And you'd mentioned earlier that it wasn't exactly like your main goal when you're coming up, but you like it now. When you first realized you were going to be in this side of the industry, are there any figures or directors or editors that you looked towards as like just to kind of see what a good job would be versus a bad job, I guess? Like, was there any, like, if I'm going to be say a cinematographer or something, I'm going to look at some stuff from like whoever works with Denis Villeneuve or like, you know, guys like that. Are there any figures like that you thought of as far as like I guess giving you a target?
Not so much for what I do because it's a post-production supervisor job. If you were saying an editor or a director, you know, or even producers, then or writers, that kind of the creative things, you're like, oh, that's really cool, or that's something to shoot for. But I don't know many like, you know, high-profile post supervisors out there or anything like that. I mean, there probably are, but I've never really had that sort of as an influence.
So you can get into being a post supervisor without necessarily having to be an editor prior to or anything like that. Like, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, it give you a nice vague answer. It helps. Like the more that you know, again, that's why I said to you, like those times when I worked on set gave me a lot of knowledge to bring into post.
Yeah.
You know, like you understand, you know, why didn't they get a proper slate, or why didn't they shoot this way? It's like, well, there's other factors that happen on set that you might not know or see.
Yeah.
So it helps to do those other jobs, even in post. I think for my role, I think there's definitely a base of like, you should have probably been an assistant editor, or you should have, you know, put your hands on editing a little bit. And kind of the more you understand the hands-on process of those other jobs, the better you are at your job, the more confident you can be and the more problems you can solve. So yeah, the more you can do those things, great. It helps out immensely.
Cool. Do you have any working in this industry in what you do, have there been any moments, like have you been able to figure out what looks like the post-production side of the film was done right? Like in working in post-production as long as you have, even though you're not necessarily directly an editor or a Foley artist or anything like that, I'm sure you've seen enough projects come to fruition afterwards to know what a good job in post versus a bad job in post is. I'm just wondering, do you have any examples of what a good versus a bad one would be? Like, are there any like taboos, I guess, is there anything that's like a cliche as far as like the post world goes?
A cliche. I mean, there's the Wilhelm scream.
So the Wilhelm scream.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a like you say, that's a cliche, right? There's a documentary on it. Apparently, I haven't seen it.
I think I did watch that doc. I think you can see it on YouTube even now.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was from like way back when, like the early days of film, and then now it's this kind of running gag it's in, I don't know, thousands of movies. It's insane. And you can hear it. As soon as you hear it, it makes me laugh, right?
You know, it's the scream. It's that one.
Yeah, it's unmistakable. But that, I don't know, that's just a fun gag that's kind of continued on, and I love it. The fact that Tarantino and like all these huge directors and current filmmakers will throw it in their serious film. Like it's, but it's a little bit of a shout out. But I mean, I don't know. One thing I think it applies to people who work on set, such as yourself too, is when something is done really well, you just don't notice it and you get lost in the show or the movie. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you find that when you're watching a show, you're like kind of looking to see, where they must have had a light there, or
working in film has ruined movies for me. So I'm always looking at that kind of
really?
stuff now. Yeah, not necessarily ruined, but I guess it's just that like now that I'm aware of all these elements that go into like what makes a scene, I can't help but find myself thinking about it, unless it is a really, really well made movie, and then all of a sudden I'm like in it, right?
That's what I find too, is if it's well done, you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Like you're really just focused on the movie.
Yeah.
I still find that. Bad visual effects really jump out at me.
Yeah?
Yeah. I've really noticed that, where you're like, oof.
Do you have any examples from like movies gone by?
I'm sure there's a few. I'm just trying to think. I mean, good effects, same thing, where you're like, holy, what's the series I watched recently? Andor.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Like the set pieces, like, for the backgrounds, like the blending between like the set and sort of the background of the city or something like that. Yeah. And like, it just is so photoreal.
Well, they use that new, like that 8K bendy screen now. They've got like that.
There is a lot of that going on. Yeah, it's still, I don't know. There's a lot of pros and cons to that.
Okay.
I haven't worked on a show that's actually implemented that, but a lot of it has to do with like cost, and I mean that's the big one. Like, is it cost effective? Is it cheaper than a green screen? All that kind of stuff. So yeah, I haven't worked on a show with that, but there are a few stages here in Vancouver that lots of productions are using.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Isn't that what they use on like? And I knew they used it on the Mandalorian. Yeah, this huge like 100-foot wide screen that just projects like, whatever the background's supposed to be. Yeah,
and it's, apparently it keeps the perspective, as you move. I haven't actually been to one of those stages. I should probably go check it out, because some of my post supervisor friends have worked on shows that implement that technology as well. And I haven't worked with it yet.
Do you think it's more something they've implemented to help the actors stay in it because they're not stuck in front of a big blue or green screen, rather than it actually being a higher quality background?
I don't think that was necessarily the intent.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I think it probably came across as like, is this cost effective? Does it look more realistic? That's probably it. Okay. I mean, I'm sure it does help the actors. You have to get an actor in here and interview them. I think I've got one coming up soon, hopefully. Yeah, maybe she's been on some stuff with some VFX like that, or some good screens. Okay, well, since we're on the topic of good and bad editing and stuff, You trying to get me canceled here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Don't hire this guy.
What's your opinion on the current conflict in?
Yeah. We going into the Middle East? Yeah. What are we going to talk about next?
I have this thing that I've decided to start doing on my last episode called Yes or Yuck.
Okay.
I'm just going to ring off like a movie title, and you can tell me.
Can I go no? I may have to go no comment.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, if it's something you've worked on, feel free.
Yeah, no, I try not to badmouth too many. I mean, productions that have gone by, because like you said, it's a small town and whatnot.
Well, these are mostly like older, more historical movies anyhow, a lot of them, and they are from lists online that have been like top 10 worst and best editing jobs and stuff. So I just kind of editing and like just like like basically anything done in the post side of it all.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna ring off some movie names, and then you can say yes or yuck or no comment if you want.
Sure.
But I figured then we can use like I usually go about 30 seconds afterwards just to like elaborate on why or whatever, right? So let's start with the Star Wars original trilogy. Like we talked about the Wilhelm scream and stuff like that.
I mean, I
So-
loved it. Like, I saw them as a kid.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Like they totally blew my mind when
Yeah.
I saw. Like I think they did for everybody, right?
Yeah,
The
and-
originals were fantastic.
It was kind of one of the first with those like scene transitions, right? Like the, you remember
Yeah,
how
yeah,
like they
the
do like
wipes and
the
stuff.
pan, the wipes and like the from the center out and stuff.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah.
The whole movie. I mean, wow, blew your mind.
So that I'd assume that was a yes then, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
is that for all three of the original trilogy then?
The original, the three. Yeah.
Okay. And what about the prequels? Yes or yuck?
Not for me. Again, I didn't enjoy them.
Yeah.
I think they were more. I don't know. Looking back, we discussed it too. We were like, I think these are for kids, right? I don't know if George Lucas would say that, but I think they were more for kids. And I think as an adult who saw them as kids, I kind of expected it to be, this mind blowing thing, which
Yeah.
maybe some of the new spinoffs are, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Like I think, like I said, Andor to me was like awesome. Like it blew my
Mm-hmm.
mind. But yeah, I think the prequels were for kids. So again, not for me.
the writing wasn't necessarily the best either. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, and again, talk about visual effects. Like some of it was really cool, but some of it also, I mean, it's a certain period of time, but it didn't blow me away visual effect wise the way that I thought it could have.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like there was some wasted potential in that, especially in the original trilogy. And like, I don't like sand. Why? Like, George Lucas just had to throw that line in there. I don't get it. It didn't make any sense to me. He's like, do you remember that scene?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's when Anakin's in the field with Padme. I think it's in the Clone Wars episode. And it's supposed to be some romantic frolicking thing. They're out in the grassy field or something, and they're laying there, and they start talking about Tatooine, and he's like, "There's so much sand. I don't like sand. It gets everywhere."
Well,
And-
to be honest, it's probably something he wrote, as a personal side note after filming with Tunisia. Isn't that where they were for the original?
I think so. Yeah,
I mean, all the sand, like, I think by the end of that, you'd hate it.
probably
The
messed
sand-
with all the equipment.
all the
right?
equipment, the
Yeah.
cameras, like in your eyes. Like, I'm sure that was probably a little bit of a, a nod to, from George Lucas saying, I fucking hate sand.
Yeah, sure enough.
I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that as like a personal commentary. Actually, now that you mention it, now it makes a little
Yeah.
bit more sense. I thought it was such an awkward placement of
Yeah,
a line.
fair
though.
enough.
Trying to dig deep into a character, and he
Yeah.
comes up with sand. It's just like, what the hell,
Yeah,
man?
the moon is weird. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
Doesn't make
Exactly.
any sense.
So, did you get a chance to see the last three of the Star Wars, like episodes 7 through 9?
Which ones of those again? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I liked The Force Awakens.
Yeah,
I liked it. I
Yeah.
mean, again, it was a throwback to kind of the original, I think, in a lot of kind of structure and story, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought they nailed it. I liked it. The
Yeah.
two following, I didn't like so much.
it's like they kept trying to reboot it without officially rebooting it.
Yeah. Again, when you get into these big shows, there's so much, politics and it takes us into a different conversation though about, movies to make money, trying to appease the audience and make sure there's a huge success as opposed to, we want to tell this story. And I think those two are always like clashing.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance between social commentary and storytelling, right? It seems to be like they were trying to lean too much in one direction.
Yeah, and I think like it just business first. I mean, that's the film business. That's basically it. Creative versus financial end, and it's like it's an ongoing battle on pretty much every show I've ever worked on.
How often do you experience that on the shows you work on? I guess probably in every one of them, man.
Yeah, there's always we want to do this, but we don't have enough money, right? That's and the director's like, I want to do it, and the producer's like, no, you can't, or we'll find a way. Like it's a constant. It's always like that.
So we'll say final trilogy was a yes for 7, but yuck for the last
Yeah,
two.
I would say so.
Okay, cool. Moulin Rouge. You ever get a chance to watch?
I never
Moulin
saw
Rouge?
it.
No.
No,
Okay, we'll move on to. Did you see the new Elvis movie?
did not see that either.
Oh man, that
Yeah.
one's off too. Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, yes or yuck?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was talking about editing and
Yeah.
pacing.
Yeah.
That's one thing about Scorsese. His movies there's never a dull moment. It's always moving.
Yeah, they never
And-
slow down.
Yeah, and if it does slow down, it's like intense enough to hold your interest.
Yeah.
I haven't seen his new one yet. Was it Child of the? I forget the name.
Oh, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I've heard good things, but I haven't seen it. But like I gotta say probably top 3, like Goodfellas. It
Nice.
just moves. Wolf of Wall Street again, super entertaining.
Yeah.
Pretty provocative, and I think it's got the record for the most cursing in a movie now. I think.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonah Hill holds the record for
Does
the
he?
most fucks in one character. Yeah.
No, it was good, but again, the editing is just like super on point.
Yeah.
and super fast.
What
moving.
about The Big Short?
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How does it-
fantastic.
I like that part of it. Like when Adam McKay makes a film like Vice or something, right?
Mhm.
It's usually like it's almost a documentary in a sense. Like they have these sections where they like tell you like, so this is what was happening, right?
Yeah,
Like nobody
cool.
understood how the housing market really worked, right? And then The Big Short had some way of like there's like this cutoff where they're almost using like Jenga pieces as like mortgage packages and
Yeah,
stuff. Right?
I mean, and think about that too. If you were to pitch, that's the thing about movies too. If you were to pitch the story, oh, we're gonna make a drama, comedy, interesting story about the financial crisis of 2008, you'd be like, what? That sounds boring, right? But the way you do it, it's
Yeah.
all about how you execute it,
Yeah.
right? And like you say, with a little, sidebar talking points
Yeah.
and the way it was done and the cast and the writing, like it was a fantastic film. You didn't even have to know anything about the financial crisis, I don't think, to enjoy it.
I know I didn't, and I felt like I knew a lot more about it after the movie, which was
Yeah.
kind of nice.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice win to like, teach people about maybe, what happened
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, but in an entertaining way.
They should almost make it a mandate for you to watch that film before you buy a house.
Yeah.
You got to understand how these work, right? Did you get a chance? This is an older one. The Ang Lee Hulk movie with
Yeah,
Eric
I
Bana.
remember it. Yeah.
I remember it was the first time I saw them trying to use like almost like comic panels for.
Yeah. I thought that was super cool,
Yeah.
right? How they did it. It was a little slow, I think, in terms of pacing, but again, you talk about, interesting things in pose, like very interesting with transitions was another one
Yeah.
with that. And like you say, how they did kind of segment it into, the different panels and stuff. Yeah, I liked it.
So we'll give it a yes.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
cool,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I was with my dad first time I saw that movie. I think I was 10 or 12 maybe, but I remember being stoked because after all the slowness, he's finally like fighting some tanks or something. And I look over and he is just asleep
Oh, yeah?
in the movie theater. Just passed
Took
straight
too
out.
long to get
Yeah.
there?
I was like, this probably missed the mark for him.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and the visual effects like that, at the time, I thought they were really
Yeah.
good and really cool and stuff like that. So I haven't really, I've been a yes man here. I haven't said no to anything, have I? Maybe the
I mean, the prequels.
I guess the prequels.
Yeah. And so, here's one. This is going back. The Adam West Batman series.
Oh God, I mean, that was before my time.
Yeah,
I'm not that old.
I know.
Do you?
I think so. I hope so. I mean,
So it was before my time. I mean, again, like, for its time, I'm sure it was awesome. People were like,
that's why I put it there because it was like, it's corny as hell,
yeah,
right?
now,
But, yeah,
right?
But back then, it's like you got letters popping up on
Yeah.
on the scenes and stuff.
But I think at the time people were like, "This is awesome. This is cool." Like, it was entertaining, and to be honest, it was. When you look back at that stuff, you're kind of like, "Yeah, it looks lame and cheesy now," but it was like where it started, kind of like, right. Somebody's kind of got to do it first, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And even though it was a little ways along, but I think it was. I remember hearing Nick Swartzen talk about like the Transformers movies.
Yeah.
And, he was saying how people were like, oh, it sucked. It sucked. It was lame. It was sucked. He's like, if you watch that movie in like the 60s, it would blow your mind.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
your head would fucking explode, right?
I was so stoked on those movies when when the first Transformers came out, like even the teaser trailers. 'Cause I used to watch the animated series when I was a kid all the time and Beasties and stuff.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
was just like, man, like when I saw like Spielberg's name tagged with like Transformers, I was like, there's no way. There is no way. But then it happened. And I was stoked.
Yeah, I mean, again, visual effects, you're just like, oh my God. Like, it looks so fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it blows
metal
your mind.
shining and everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's actually where I was going to go next.
Good sound too, actually.
Yeah. Oh, the sound design on it was.
I think they've won,
Really cool.
and I'm pretty sure they won, like, if I'm not mistaken, Academy Awards for their sound work on that.
Cool. I
I'm
didn't
pretty
know
sure.
That's really neat actually, because those were the next ones on my list with the Transformers movies. But
Yeah, I mean, I
guess we
don't. Again, they're a different category of movie, right? And
Yep.
and they're designed to kind of entertain the world, which they do. Like those movies make over $1 billion usually. Again, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I have huge respect for, like you say, the visual effects or the sound design. Like you can find pretty good qualities in even the shittiest of movies, I think. But
well, if there's one thing Michael Bay delivers on, it's lots of shining lights and explosions, right? So it's at least visually appealing that way if you're looking for that stuff, right?
people like them. Like I say, they're making $1 billion, right? So
the guy who voiced Optimus Prime was also the voice actor for the King Kong movie, the Peter Jackson Kong movie. And I remember him saying something about how when he first started doing Optimus Prime's voice, he was just recovering from rupturing a vocal cord.
Oh yeah,
from doing the Kong
That's why it
screams all the
sounded
time.
like that,
Yeah. That would have been
Cool.
like a real struggle, though. Man, that was just crazy, though. You remember the first time you see that semi truck pull up, and it's just like, here he is. It's the big guy, and Optimus Prime shows. The voice was perfect for it.
yeah, it was awesome.
I'm gonna get stuck on that and nerd out a bit, though. Like, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Saw it again a long time ago. I remember watching it really young, when I was really young, and I didn't get it at the time. I don't think I was the right age maybe to watch it. Like E.T. I would have enjoyed more, right, at that age, being a kid.
Yeah.
Close Encounters for me at that age, I was just kind of like, this is weird.
It was strange, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, maybe if I'd gone back or, go back and watch it now, I might think differently.
So we'll take a pass. Oh wait, was it a yes or a yuck for Transformers then?
I mean, again, I don't.
Strictly post-production speaking.
Post-production wise,
Yeah.
See, post-production wise, I'd have to say you got to give it a thumbs up. Like it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
As a film overall, not for me.
Yeah.
But
Fair
but
enough,
yeah, but post-production, you're like, holy shit! Like it's amazing.
How about The Departed?
Oh, one of my top 5 movies of all time.
Post-production wise.
Again, you're splitting it into 2 categories here. I mean, I love the film. Yeah, I can't think of. I mean, everything was pretty great. It's funny, even in that show, there's one edit that I think about now. I'm such a nerd, but I think it's what's the main song from it? That's the name of it. Oh, come on.
Dropkick Murphys.
Thank you. Yep, that's the song.
Shipping Up to Boston.
Yeah. So at one point they're driving in a car and the music's playing. I think they're like going somewhere, and then all of a sudden it just cuts out on an edit. And for me, it was jarring. I mean, I've watched that film probably like 5 to 10 times. I love it.
Yeah.
But I still remember that hard out. I'm like, it jarred me. I was like, oh, what a weird ending to it and a weird transition. Yeah.
Do you think they were intending to push that feeling on people?
I think so.
With that
Yeah.
kind of
I think a guy like that does, everything's calculated, but yeah, it definitely, I remember being like, that's weird. But yeah, teach their own.
Yes then, or a yuck?
Oh, 100% yes. I mean, yeah, one bad music edit, In my opinion, right? In my opinion.
Did you ever get a chance to watch The Room?
No, it seems a little too. I don't mind watching, sad, depressing movies.
It was a camp. Well, that
I got the wrong one.
Yeah,
sorry, I'm thinking
Tommy-
about the one with Brie Larson.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the Tommy Wiseau low budget The Room, right?
No, and I didn't watch the film that what's his name? Who was it?
James Franco.
Yeah, I
the
didn't watch it
disaster
either.
artist, yeah.
I mean, I'd seen clips obviously from it, and it was hilarious, but I didn't really want to spend my time doing it.
It's
so I
a
can't
hard one to
comment,
get through,
unfortunately.
yeah. Okay, I can guarantee you almost it would have been a yuck unless you have a very niche taste in anything.
But again, you can take you can watch things like they have a kind of a cult status that
Absolutely
turns into a fun movie to watch. So if you take it for what it is,
I go
right?
every year. The Rio does a screening of The Room.
Oh, okay.
And people come there with packs of plastic spoons. And the reason that is because like in almost every photo that is put on a set in this movie, it's always pictures of spoons. And so,
Oh.
yeah, no, it's weird,
didn't
right?
know.
Yeah, they just recycle the same stock photos of like spoons in different picture frames and put them on walls and shit. And people, like, as soon as there's like spoons, the whole crowd starts screaming
Oh, that's
spoon,
awesome.
and they start hucking plastic spoons at the front of the thing.
See, that's fun,
Yeah.
right?
I made the mistake of getting like the front 3 rows. Like I was in the 3rd row from the front when I went to go see it the first time in the screening. Next thing you know, I'm getting pelted by spoons. It was wild. A whole different thing.
I mean, again, that's like, people will enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, maybe it's not what was intended, but
They made the best of it, that's for sure.
yeah, I'm surprised that what's his name, Tommy Wiseau, is that his
Tommy
name?
Wiseau, yeah.
I'm surprised he hasn't shown up for that. Actually,
They
should get him.
I think they do the screenings for it like kind of all around the world. They do it like
okay.
at a lot of community funded like theaters will do that sort of thing. The Rio's really cool that way, but they do a lot of like campy movie like weeks where they'll just like throw up like low budget like old James Gunn movies and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Toxic Avenger and like all kinds of crap like that. Yeah, it's a fun way to like spend a Friday night. It's not too expensive, and you get to go laugh at something that was like, it's still kind of cool to watch. Yeah, not bad. And they serve beer and grilled cheese at the theater, so it's like why
can't
not?
go wrong.
Yeah, it's a fucking good night. So, I guess that's it for our yes or yuck, which actually turned out to be a pretty good conversation topic. Honestly, that was pretty decent.
I mean, you picked a lot of good movies in there too. Though.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right?
I was trying to. The thing is, like, movies with terrible editing don't usually get that well recognized in the first place. So it was kind of hard for me to find anything other than like The Room and some of the newest trilogy of Star Wars and stuff like that, where like the post production work wasn't exactly the best, but. In your opinion, what do you think was like the perfect project as far as like strictly speaking in post production, visual effects, audio? Like if you as a supervisor saw X movie as a final product and your team that you were supervising was the one that made all the post production for it, and you would be like, this is probably the best thing I've ever done or ever seen. What movie do you think would be one that comes up?
I can't really, an answer doesn't come to mind.
No?
No, just because of the whole process. Like, at the end of the day, like I take movies in the same as everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't sit there and, there are times when you're like, oh, that was like really great sound design or a really great score or whatever, and it does kind of stand out. Elements of post stand out, but I don't come out of a movie going, oh, that post, the overall post was great. It's more like, that's in the back of my mind, but it's more like, did I enjoy it? Did I not? Was the story great? Like, was it good acting? Again, that's the whole thing about film is it all kind of comes together, right?
Yeah.
And you can sit there and go, the acting was great, but the story was terrible. But it is kind of that when it all comes together and all those different elements are firing, that's when you get like a really great movie. Again, in my opinion, some people won't agree with that, but
yeah, I think I agree with you on that. It like to have a truly good movie, it does take that like miracle of like all the different departments,
right,
making it work incredibly well. What do you think is the most helpful in the shooting phase of a film to make the post-production side easier?
I could always say the simple things. I'll tell you one thing that there's so many elements, like proper lighting and framing and sound is a huge one. People, I think, underestimate the importance of sound. I'll tell you why. Again, in my opinion, when you're on set and everyone's like quiet, silence, blah blah blah, you have to get that clear dialogue from the actors. If you don't get it and there's a plane or there's somebody talking or there's a weird noise that can't be removed in the post process,
can't turn the AC system off or something.
Yeah, so now there is technology now that's pretty good where you can isolate those frequencies and get rid of it.
Stuff. Yeah,
I think even iPhone now.
Yeah.
I saw an ad the other day that you can do that on an iPhone, which is amazing, right? So yeah, technology is completely changing the post process, as it's evolved. But yeah, but that getting a clean dialogue, because if you don't get it and you go and you cut in the take or whatever, then you have to get the actor or actress to redo it in the studio.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think most actors would say they never quite get it the way that they delivered it on set. If it's a particularly emotional scene or what have you, to get the inflection, to get the emotion, to nail it. So I always think that, like, get good, clean sound for dialogue. That's just so important. And sometimes, like you say, it's not possible, right? There's a plane that flies overhead or what have you. And I have seen actors that are pretty good at ADR, as we call it, in the studio. They're pretty remarkable, but tough to get there.
Yeah.
Although I heard, I don't know if you heard, Lord of the Rings, I was told that I think all of it, or at least 90%, if not all of it, is all ADR.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I Googled it. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. A sound mixer told me that, like, last year, I think it was. I was like, oh, yeah, we were dealing with a studio in LA, and the sound mixer, I don't know if he worked on it or not, but he told me, and I was like, what? He's like, yes, I did he did the recording sessions with Elijah Wood. And he's like, we did it for the whole film. I'm like, what? And I Googled it. Sure enough, it's true.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow, that's because there's some big scenes there too, and like, wow. I mean, it's kind of a testament to Ian McKellen's Gandalf character too, then, because if he could throw that same vocal, like, oomph in, like he did in the whole, like, you shall not pass scene, like, and you got, like, you do it there, and then you got to go do it in a booth again and somehow get that same.
Yeah,
that's wild.
I to this day I still can't believe it, because it's like weeks and weeks of actors in studios trying to recreate what they did 6 months before. Yeah,
imagine being like, you think you're done the project, primary shooting, principal shooting's all done, and then it's like, okay, Elijah, we've got you booked for another 4 weeks. You're coming to Universal or wherever, and you're gonna be in a booth for 8 hours a day, just like reading over the lines.
I think they really got into it, as I recall, reading or hearing that they kind of looked at it as an opportunity to, like, get it again, and that is another way to look at it. But and they kind of got used to it.
Yeah,
but that's a lot of work.
I can't imagine they ADR'd for the broken toe part. Did you ever hear about that?
No. Oh yeah, when you're talking about Vigo kicking the thing?
Yeah, he kicked a helmet and he didn't know it was like a real helmet or whatever. Busted his toe in half, and that scream that he got out was 100% a cry of pain out of him.
Yeah, and maybe that's why I said, like, I think, I can't remember if it was like 90%, but like almost all of it. And they probably, again, that's why I say they probably used little bits and pieces here and there that they were able to use in the
salvage.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I had no idea. That's a fun fact. That's the thing about film, man. Like, there's always like these fun little, like, tidbits that you find out. Like, people just get so experimental with it on such, like, a big budget too. Like, how do you come to those kinds of decisions? It just makes me wonder, like, when you're in charge of a project like that, like, we're gonna ADR all of this afterwards. Like,
yeah, sometimes it's it's determined by, like, our team, the post team or whatever, that listens to it and goes, it's going to sound too muddled, or there's too much noise. Again, it's the way it's kind of mixed and isolated and whatnot in the final product that determines whether or not it's usable.
So is your role, do you have a lot of, like, weight as far as the decision making for things like that go, or are you more like a communications position?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, yes and no. It really depends project to project. Like, some projects I'm more involved with, like, that's a good take or not. In terms of deciding whether to replace it, yeah, I'll weigh in, but as a supervisor, you're really relying on the team. Like, so we have a sound team that goes through the entire show, and they flag all the lines that need to be done. The producers throw in the ones that they want to add or whatever. It's my job to kind of oversee all of those things and say, I think we got a take that's usable, or, is there a way we can somehow salvage this, and that kind of thing. But yeah, really relying on the technical people to determine that.
Good. Cool. So I probably should have asked you at the start of this whole conversation, but if somebody, so for the people out there who are watching this, if you're not entirely sure what post-production is or what the aspect of editing is, I was hoping you could give kind of like a editing for dummies rundown as to what the details of your job and the part of the industry that you work in entails.
Yeah. Well, post-production is basically the process of taking the footage that's shot on set, and then from that point, editing, doing sound work, visual effects work, color and picture work, bringing all of those elements together, and then the delivery, which is also a huge part of it, actually, is delivering it. It's never easy, to the client, the broadcaster, the studio, whatever it is.
When you say deliver, like what makes it difficult to deliver the product?
Well, without getting too technical, it gets into a very there's so many little details and specifics and technicalities that things have to go through, right? File formats, delivery specs, timelines as well, schedule to get everything there in time. It's got to go through different QC processes, and it's so, you talk about like the attention to detail.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Everything from like, a dead pixel in a shot or whatever that somebody notices to, clicks in a sound mix or something like that. Or, and then just the file formats and all the elements too. Like it's, when you're delivering a project, there's a list that's like pages long of all the different things they need. Whether it's, the music stems and, mix tracks and different versions, international version, domestic version. Just sometimes it's an assembly of the show without any color or anything like that on it. The dailies themselves, the raw media, backups of that. Yeah. Like it just goes on and on and on of all the different technical specs.
It's a lot of boxes you got to check.
Tons. Probably, and it's because when you think about it, like you think about, well, where does this end up? Like, a lot of projects, many that I've worked, they end up worldwide. And so there's different requirements. Again, there's like closed caption for some stuff and audio description for some stuff. And then, you got to deliver things so that people can do voiceovers in different languages. And so there's a ton of technical stuff. And that's why the process of post takes, if you shoot, let's say a movie, a small feature, it takes you 2 months, post will last like 6, 7, 8 months, right?
Wow.
It takes a lot longer because there's just so much detail and so many things that have to be addressed.
Wow. I didn't know it took that, so it literally takes sometimes double or more.
Yeah, I would say double for sure, but it depends on the project, right? Yeah. Like a Hallmark movie, they shoot it in 15 days and we probably from shoot to finish is like, 2.5 months.
Yeah, so again, it's formula.
It's easily, but it's easily double the length of time it takes to shoot it, easily.
Wow.
And we're working in post while shooting is occurring because every day we get dailies, and as soon as the dailies start coming in, the editor starts chomping away on it and putting it together.
Crazy. Okay. Yeah. Well, so we're getting close to the end here, so I just want to ring off a couple things. I know we already talked about how you ended up getting into the post-production side, but if somebody watching this or listening to this wanted to get into that aspect of it,
sure.
First 3 things you'd tell them to do.
Let me see here. First 3 things. Again, there's so many different ways to go about it. Just trying to think. I mean, getting into a post facility, like anything on set too, like starting out as a PA, we have post PAs, right? And, a lot of times it's, menial tasks or whatever, but it needs to be done.
Yeah.
That would be the first thing I would recommend is like, if, go in, check it out, see if there are places that will take on a PA to do, kind of the, not great, shitty work or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, starting out those jobs, you get to see, like it's like even said, you go to be an extra. Yeah, it's not great, but you'll get to see all these different things and how it happens. Same with post. Like you'll get to see a lot of different processes and how it all kind of comes together. And again, maybe you figure out, I want to do what that person does, or I want to do what, she does or he does. And so that's one piece of advice. The other is I know we've talked a little bit
Yeah.
about it, is there are some programs out there. Some of them are there's a lot of stuff online now too. Like
Yeah.
you want to learn how to use, an editing system, there's tutorials on YouTube and stuff like that. It's amazing to me, like the detail that people put, like After Effects, like how to use After Effects. Like
In your experience, are there like somebody who's been trained via like YouTube tutorials or whatever? Is there any way for them to be able to put that on a resume as like a
No.
hireable skill? So is it a little more effective to get a certification of some kind? I
Yeah,
guess?
it helps.
Yeah.
It helps. I mean, because the first question, I would ask hiring somebody is like, do you know Avid? Do you know how to use Avid? And again, maybe they've learned online how to do it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, to say like, and again, I mentioned this program, like at a place like BCIT, I think they teach you not just the technical, push this button, does that, push that and does that, but the other bit more about the process of like, okay, this is coming in, this is what you're supposed to do with it, this is why you do this, a bit more detail and explanation as to that.
I guess there's probably some mentorship offered through those programs too, just by having a professor nearby that can kind of.
Well, yeah, and like I said, the person that I know that runs the program here, we hired somebody to be our assistant editor. I was like, we need somebody desperately, because I think there's a huge need, at least right now. Sorry, when I say right now, I mean we're going through a bit of a strike period right now. Excuse me, in the industry. But like last year, I mentioned to you, we were dying for people. There weren't enough assistant editors first, and then even editors. So yeah, for somebody to come with us with some sort of course or whatever that says I've done this, is a huge leg up.
Yeah.
So that would be sort of the second thing. How else to get into it? I don't know. I mean, those are the two big ones to try and get in. And so, and even finding somebody that's maybe a mentor that's willing to kind of, take you under, even a friend or a coworker that's doing it already, says, hey, you should come and sit in or what have you. Those would be the two anyway. I don't know about a third.
And so you mentioned Avid. Are there any other programs that you recommend being familiar with as far as what you guys most frequently see used in post-production?
Yeah, again, it's different. Usually, it's not usually all under one roof either, right? Like the visual effects house is its own entity. Yeah. I mean, I think they use a lot of different programs, Maya, Nuke, all these other ones. I'm not the person necessarily speak on what to use for that. As far as like picture editing and stuff, Avid is still, I would say, industry standard. Although Premiere is kind of a
good
close second. Yeah, very, very, and used on a lot of shows. But the more you have, like, Resolve is a huge one too.
DaVinci. Yeah.
People are using it for editing. Like it was kind of more just the color grading thing, end of it. But now it's like people are actually editing on it. It's used, for sort of finishing and stuff. It's a huge asset. Sound wise, I mean, I'd still say I have to check with the sound guys, but I think Pro Tools is probably still the benchmark for sound editing and stuff.
Cool.
Those are the ones that kind of come to mind.
Nice. Okay.
I'm sure I'm missing a ton, but
the one last thing I want to pick your brain about is I wanted to get your opinion on, like, obviously these strikes have been happening and a big reason for it has been like AI.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this.
Yeah, I've been very interested in it, and I just actually realized throughout this interview that like I haven't even touched on it. So I just want to get a quick rundown.
We can keep going a little bit longer if you want to.
Okay, that'd be just a...
Sure, if you got some more questions there.
I actually didn't write anything down about the AI stuff, to be honest. I was... I charge
$50 a minute, so
okay,
better nail it down here.
Let's get the checkbook running here. Ryan, you ready to sign it off, man? No, I just wanted to know, like, or get your insight as to where you think it's going to benefit and where you think it's going to hinder, and who is safe as far as like, maybe not necessarily. Like, I feel like everyone's job might be in some aspect replaceable by an AI of some kind, but we also have protective unions and stuff to keep certain aspects of this industry alive without having it interfere, right? That's what the strikes are about right now. So, yeah, like, what do you, in like 5 to 10 years, your best idea, what do you think it's going to be like? Like, do you think there's going to be the same amount of post-production jobs available? And
yeah, first answer. Yeah, are we going to be pods like for food in the Matrix?
it's kind of what I'm hoping we don't get to.
You got 5 years, Adam, and then that's it.
Oh,
that's it. You're up. I mean, obviously, I don't know.
Yeah.
The future is unknown. Obviously, it is a huge disruptor in the industry right now.
Have you seen any of it yourself, like come in and start?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
I've got somebody sent me a link to an AI editing program. That was like a while ago too, and I didn't look too closely at it. And obviously, there's Chat GPT and this kind of thing. But yeah, it's a huge disruptor. I think that it's already starting to do like some editing work, right? And I had a conversation with a post producer the other day, and a director asked, is the sound edit going to be done by AI? And I was like, well, I kind of caught me off guard. He said, yeah, the last show this director worked on, the sound edit, not the mix or anything, but it was done by AI. So
really?
Yeah, so already it started to creep in certain ways into post. I don't know really where it'll end up. Will it replace jobs? Yes, I'm sure it will. Like many jobs in the industry.
Yep.
And not just our industry as well. Like I was actually
all over the world.
All over. Right? Yeah. I was having a discussion with this friend of mine. His wife is a sort of an administrative nurse, PhD, highly educated, and she was telling us how with MRI scans and stuff now, like that AI is being implemented with that, right? To review a scan instead of a radiologist. It's and oftentimes more effective, and so
see a lot more of the spectrum and stuff, right?
Yeah, and and so which is crazy, but I sound like Christopher Walken there for a second.
It's crazy,
but so it will replace jobs, like as I said, all these other industries. Yeah. So I don't know. Is it good? Is it bad? I guess these people that are displaced, what are they going to do? Are they going to be able to take their skills to something else? Yeah. I don't know. It's a big question mark and a big concern.
Yeah.
Because that whole sound edit thing, I was like, oh my God, like that's that.
So when you say like, did it like master the whole thing? Like it cut the sound and like brought levels up where it needed to and stuff?
I guess so. I mean, it wasn't a show I worked on, but my understanding was like it found sound effects for all the different sounds in each shot or each scene and was able to lay them in. That's my understanding. And the director was asking because he was like, he liked it. Yeah. He was like, it worked out really well. It was probably really fast. My post producer's response was kind of, well, no, we're still using our, human team to do this and stuff. But I don't know, 5 years from now, like who knows? I just don't know. I was also in a mix with a composer recently, and she was worried too. She's like, is AI going to be able to do, my work, my job? I don't know. I mean, I just read yesterday, I think they're like, oh, I put a Taylor Swift song online. It was fake. It wasn't Taylor Swift, but nobody knew.
Yeah. Same thing happened with what was apparently a Drake single, but it wasn't Drake at all. It was just AI made a Drake beat and like emulated his voice perfectly. And
right.
Everything. It was.
So, I mean, actually, I did hear an article. This is interesting. It was a podcast actually. About they were interviewing, I can't remember the guy's name. I think I may have sent it to you, but they were talking about the legalities of it. Yeah, because this is where you might be able. I don't know. It's kind of like Pandora's box. I don't think you're going to be able to really cap it too much. But the argument was that the sources that AI is using to amalgamate and get its whatever its output or content is taken from other pre-existing content that is copyrighted. Yes. Right? And I think Shutterstock, filed a lawsuit against somebody because you could see in the amalgamation of all the elements that there was, in some parts of it, there was like a Shutterstock watermark in the bottom. And they're like, oh, you used some of our material to create this I always like the one of Will Smith eating pasta. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty rudimentary and rough, but you get the concept, which
Yeah.
is it took photos of Will Smith and
Yeah.
pasta and was able to generate this,
Next thing you
fucking
you got
crazy.
Fresh Prince with spaghetti and meatballs, right?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
Yeah.
hilarious. But the idea is like it's taking this material from the internet, and that material is copyrighted. And but the catch is when they asked, apparently, when they asked, I don't know if it was Microsoft or whomever, they said, where is it getting this information from exactly? And they said they don't know. That's what I heard. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but basically they know it's taking it from the internet, but they don't know exactly where or
I
how.
think we just had a court ruling about that recently, saying that anything made by AI cannot be officially copyrighted. At least anything that people are titling as like a creative project, because of the fact that it does grab from other sources.
Right.
So like because AI is not I think it all came down to the fact that it doesn't have a human mind, and that most of the things that it makes are all based off of sources it finds online. So it can't be copyrighted or trademarked as an original IP. So like everything that like AI comes up with, I don't know what the scope is as far as like the boundaries of that go, but I do remember watching that on some news channel on YouTube a while back. They were talking about how someone was trying to sue for people using his art, but it was art that AI generated. So he wasn't allowed to actually copyright the art because it wasn't him who made it.
Yeah, I mean, this gets into there's a whole other podcast, but an existential discussion about like, well, what makes AI different from a human? And I had this discussion with my parents a couple of weeks ago, because it's like, well, if this AI can create something that, has a personality, gets a character or whatever, or it can tell a joke and any of this sort of stuff, it's like, well, what's really making it all that different from a human? I mean, you get your experiences of life and knowledge or whatever from other people and other sources and books and internet and video and movies, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of what AI is doing. What's the difference? And
yeah, there's nothing really artificial about how it learns, right?
I mean, but it's not, like you say, it's not a human. And I don't know, like, what the deciding factor is going to be. But the argument was that this will be fought in the courts, and that will oftentimes determine whether or not, you can use it or can progress with
it's a whole new realm of legal crap.
And it's, I mean, in societal as well. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, who knows? But it's a little freaky. Like, I mean, talking about movies, how many movies have there been where AI has turned against the human race, right? Like, The Matrix or whatever is a perfect example. I think that's how it starts. Is like, AI, we had a fight with AI and,
lost.
Yeah,
lost
pretty
fast.
much.
Yeah.
Until the end. But, it's a little freaky. And, thinking like, what do you tell, like kids today to go into for like a profession or a career that isn't going to be obsolete or filled with AI in like, 5 years? I don't know. Who knows? Crazy.
All right. I mean, that's a good way. That's a good spot to end off on too, because otherwise we could get very deep with this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe I'll have to have you back another time sometime in the future. Ryan Clarke, thank you for joining me. This has been a really great and informative conversation. I really liked your answers, and I liked having the chat, man. If there's anybody you want to give a shout out to, or like, I don't know if you do a social media thing, if you want like an Instagram handle to shout out.
No,
like
I'm
that?
okay.
No? Okay.
No, this was it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. And as I said, I don't know who wants to listen to me blab on about post production for an hour, but happy to do it. I'm passionate about sort of movies. I do really enjoy movies and stuff, and I consider myself lucky to do what I do and work with the people that I work with. So
I hope that's a great attitude, and I hope whoever's watching this that's interested in doing the same thing, keep that attitude. It'll be really helpful, even outside of work. My name's Adam. This is the Deficit Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Changes come and indigo. I knew I'll find this gold with you. So long with you. So long. You're here all the time, know that, no. You're here on my mind, I'm falling for the foe. Hot and cold and on the go. Changes come and indigo. I knew I'll find this gold with you. So long, so long, so long, so long, so long.